Hi there, my name is Charlotte, and in this podcast, I'm going to discuss some particular grammatical rules found in the English language and the weird exception words that don't follow them or break them altogether. I will also touch on how this can help writers with their books. If you haven't heard any of my podcasts before, my name is Charlotte, and I have experience working in a nursery school from the ages of 0 to 4, and I now work in a primary school as a Year 2 teacher in London. So first of all, some simple ways just to explain some of those tricky grammatical rules in the English language. There are lots of grammar rules in the English language, and in this podcast, I'm just going to talk about a few of them. If I didn't, I'd be here all day. And the first rule that I'm going to talk about is the word order in sentences. Basic English sentences always follow the simple rule to first have a subject, then a verb, and then the object. This means that we know the noun, the object, the person, the subject, or the place, and they are the subject of the sentence. Then we have the verb, which explains what the subject is doing. What is the object or the person or the place, what's happening, or the subject is doing. And then last part of the sentence is the object, and this is when you find out what the subject was doing to the object, or what the subject was doing to the other person, or what the subject is doing in that particular place. So here is an example of just a basic simple sentence. The girl sings a song. And from this sentence, we know that the girl is the subject. She's the noun or the pronoun, the person or the thing that we are talking about. The verb is sings. So we know she is singing using her voice. She's singing in present tense. So she's singing right now. She sings. And she sings a song. So the song is the object, and it's what she's singing. Doesn't tell us what song she's singing, but we know that she's singing something. So it could be like she's singing Mary Had a Little Lamb. So we could say the girl sings Mary Had a Little Lamb, and you basically replace a song for the name of the song. So it's funny how you can just replace words in a sentence and it still makes sense. You could say the boy sings Mary Had a Little Lamb. Same sentence, I've just changed girl to boy and the object, a song, to Mary Had a Little Lamb, so you know what the name of the song is. All English sentences have this basic structure, even if it doesn't seem like it. And once you have this basic structure, then you can just build on it and create longer and more complex sentences and basically be a native speaker. The next rule that I'm going to discuss is about plurals, how plurals are made in the English language. The most simple rule we have for making a word into a plural word is by adding a suffix, it's the suffix s at the end of a word. So, for example, let's take the main word used for an object that is a book, for example. And the word for the book is book. Book is what we will call the root word, so it's the basic word. The root word can have prefixes and suffixes attached to it. So if there is one more book, have two books, then you add the suffix s at the end of the root word and it becomes books. There are 2 books, 3 books, 24 books, and so on and so on. Other root words that can have a suffix s added to them are words like pot, which becomes pots when you have more than one. Cow becomes cows, and have 5 cows over there. Bottle becomes bottles. There's 10 bottles on the wall. Cup becomes cups, and so on. So you can do this to quite a lot of English words. You just add the S on the end, and hey, you can have more than one pen. You have 2 pens, 3 pens, so on and so on. Now, although this is the basic rule to create a plural word, there are some exceptions to the rule, of course, and some words where this rule does not even apply. So, for example, the root word sheep, it doesn't have any suffixes added to it. So when there are more than one sheep, the word stays exactly the same. So you can say 1 sheep, 2 sheep, or many sheep, 5 sheep, 10 sheep. You don't change the ending, you don't add an S, and that breaks the rule completely for plural words. Some words might need to have a different suffix added to the end. It would be the suffix es, and it's added to them to make them into the plural word. And these words are words that usually end in an S, an X, H, or a CH. And some examples are bus, which becomes buses, fox becomes foxes, becomes brushes, and church becomes churches. So then you add the es on the end to make them the plural words. Tricky words that this rule and adding s and adding es on the end of the word and having no s's or es's added are words that just don't follow this plural at all. These words are the funny exception words that break the rules, and the root word actually changes to a completely different word to become the plural. So, for example, we have mouse becomes mice, person becomes people, woman becomes women, becomes children, and so on. And there actually are quite a few other words that seem to do this. If you Google it, you might be able to find a few more. I know I did when I searched on the internet, and I was so surprised. I was like, wow, I didn't really notice, because myself, I'm a native speaker, and these are words that I've been hearing my whole life. So it's something that you don't even register. But if you're a learner of English and you're just picking up the language now, you think, yes, I've got it. I'm just going to add an S to every single word to make it a plural. But it doesn't happen. It doesn't work. And you're like, why is this not working? And then you get told off by native speakers laughing at you, going, haha, you don't add an S. You change the word to mice. Of course. Oh, not mouses. And that's where you get the comedy that happens between native speaker versus non-native speaker and all the comedy that ensues. So, moving on, the next rule I'm going to talk about are indefinite and definite articles. And I actually looked this up from the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, where it describes indefinite articles as the word a or an used in English to refer to a person or a thing that is not identified or specified. And then it says that the definite article is the word the, and this is used in English to refer to a person or a thing that is identified or specified. So, for example, with a and an, you can say an orange. You can say the ball. You can say the orange. Then you're specifying, when you're identifying which orange, the orange, or the ball, you know which one. When you use a or an, then it's not, you don't know what the object is. It's not identified or specified. So you said a ball. It could be any ball. Say an orange. It could be any orange. So those are the main differences between those two. Both definite and indefinite articles are very small words. It's a, an, and the. Literally, a is a one-letter word, an is a two-letter word, and the is a three-letter word. And they come before a noun to show what or who a sentence is referring to. So, for example, the sentence, a boy ate the ice cream. The a is referring to the boy. The is referring to the ice cream. If the sentence did not have these articles, then it sounds like this. Boy ate ice cream. And it's a perfectly simple sentence, but it just doesn't sound right to the native ear or to a native speaker of English. It might sound like something that comes from a person who's just starting to learn English. Maybe they'll say something like that. Say, boy ate ice cream, or boy eats ice cream, boy eated the ice cream, boy ated the ice cream. And they'll forget to put in the a boy or the boy ate an ice cream or the ice cream. They'll forget to put those kind of tiny little articles in. You can still understand it, but it just sounds odd to you. And the sentence, it would just be like, oh, you might rephrase it to them or retell it to them and just add a or an or the. So these articles are only used in the English language, I think. They're not used in all languages. So not all languages have these definite and indefinite articles. Or if they do have them, they are different ones. I think in French it's like or la or le. They'll use those kind of articles. So every language kind of has their own rules or grammatical rules to follow. You just have to work out which ones or what to use, basically, to define their subjects. It's perfectly fine if you don't know, but you'll just notice that you don't sound like a native speaker. And it just doesn't sound right to a native tongue or native ear when they're listening to you. So we've got, next rule is about past tense words. The grammatical rules of past tense words. A simple rule used to turn a root word from its present tense word into a past tense word is to add the suffix ed on the end of the word. So, for example, walk becomes walked, jump becomes jumped, becomes talked, shout becomes shouted. Now, the problem with this is that, again, there are lots of words that decide to not follow the rule. For example, becomes swam, run becomes ran, eat becomes ate, and so on. So again, past tense rule of adding the ed, yes, it does work for some words. It is the basic rule. But just note there are lots of other words which don't have that, or they change completely, or they go, or they stay the same, or they are said differently. Now, this was quite a funny one, because I remember, which one was it? I read a book, spelled R-E-A-D. I read a book, R-E-A-D, still same spelling. But you need to say it in the past tense. I read a book yesterday. So then it gives you more context when it was. And read is a different sound to read, if you listen to it carefully. I read a book. So it sounds like the color red. I read a book. That means that you're reading it now in the present tense. And you sound it E. You got to read. Read and read. Very different sounds. And non-native speakers might just read it as, I read a book yesterday. I read a book today. There you go. They might not realize that you have to change the sound to show the meaning that it was in the past tense. And again, that is just, it's one of those things which breaks the rules completely and probably drives non-native speakers insane. I can't imagine how they're feeling if they're learning English and are like, what? I have to change the sound of the word? What the heck is going on, guys? There's actually this really funny YouTuber, I can't remember his name, but he does funny skits of different languages, and he does languages all over the world. He does French language, he does Spanish language, English language, American English, universal language. And he basically pretends to personify these different languages. And then he has skits with himself where he's telling himself off in French and telling himself off in English and going through the grammatical rules. And maybe I'll find his link and post it on below. But it's really quite funny. He's quite a funny YouTuber. Anyway, I digress. So let me move on to the next grammatical rule, which is possessive nouns. So possessive nouns are used to show ownership of something. And when writing ownership of something, you add at the end of the word on the suffix an apostrophe at the top and an S at the bottom. And that goes at the end of a root word. For example, John's car. John has an apostrophe S at the end of the word before the word car. When the noun is a plural, and if it already ends in an S, then you just put the apostrophe after the S. So, for example, the kids' toys. So kids, the apostrophe goes after the S at the end of the word. So very simple with that one. I don't think there's much exceptions to the rule of possessive nouns. If any of you can think of any, leave a comment below and I'll get back to you. I need to look into it. Next one. So next one. The last rule. Oh my gosh, I'm running around the last rule. The last rule is all about adverbs. Now, adverbs are tricky. They are words that modify the verb or the adjective or another verb. And it helps to tell you more about a verb in the sentence. For example, he ran quickly. The adverb is quickly because it modifies the verb and to tell you how he ran. You could also say he ran slowly. And this immediately changes what you're thinking about when a person is running slowly. Then say they were running quickly. So the adverb just adds that extra little detail and just helps you to be a bit more aware of what is happening and how it's happening. In this sentence, it was very surprising. The words very is the adverb as it modifies the adjective surprising. And common adjectives can be added and changed into an adverb by adding the suffix ly to the end of the root word. So, for example, slow becomes slowly, ly at the end. Quick becomes quickly on the end. And loud becomes loudly. Again, ly on the end, the suffix. So now I'll move on to how does knowing all these simple rules help the writers with their books. It's interesting. These basic grammar rules help writers to write what they want to say. If a person writing speaks English as a second language, they need to use all this knowledge, all this grammatical knowledge to help them when they write their sentences and to help them make it sound like native English sentences, which is actually trickier than you think. Imagine if you're trying to write in French and you don't know all the grammar rules, and then it will just sound a bit weird. It will just sound odd. And native speakers will read it and they'll know that you're not a native speaker because it doesn't sound right. So say, for example, native speakers writing a story, and they are aware of all these grammatical rules that they can make. They can make changes to the way that their character speaks, for example. They can make ways that show changes in their ideas and thoughts that they want to get across to the reader. For example, they could be writing about a group of people, and the writer would need to imagine how each person would talk. How would they interact with one another? What kind of language would they use, and how would they sound? Then they can write them in that way in their book just to get this across to the reader. And so they know what the speakers, and so the readers will then know what the speakers are meant to sound like. And they will need to know like different types of slang the speakers might use to put in their speech, how to describe the people, what they look like, and just so they can set the tone basically to understand, so readers can understand what kind of people are in this group. And think about how speech patterns might be different for a boy and a girl. Think about differences between different types of ethnicities and accents and sounds that people make when they talk. Someone might have a kind of quirk when they talk and say a lot. The other day I went fishing and it was a different day, so on and so on. They might be using a lot of slang in their speech, and they'll be using like short acronyms. Don't ask me to speak with acronyms. Not going to get it. If you need to, Google it, look it up. So all this knowledge that writers have help them to write it in their book, and then they can convey it to the reader through their story. And good grammar is just basically important for all writers to know. They need to use it in their writing. They need to know when to put the commas, the full stops, the capital letters. They need to know when to use they can use different grammatical rules in different ways, especially when you're writing in past tense versus present tense, future tense, and progressive past, and etc., etc. You need to know all of that information just to be able to write one or two sentences. So it's quite a lot when you think about it. Sometimes people don't even notice the grammar unless the story is being written in such a way that they know the author is not using the correct grammar. For example, in the book, the writer could say there's a sign posted up on someone's garden fence and it says, dangerous dog, will bite. And the comma's put after the word dangerous dog. And this causes the reader to just pause a second before they read the next bit. And they know, there's a dangerous dog and it will bite. If the comma was put after, say, dangerous, then it reads as dangerous, dog will bite. And it would make the reader pause a bit earlier and say dangerous. So they know that something dangerous is going to happen. And they write dog will bite to confirm what the danger is. Well, that's it from me. As always, let me know what you think about all these lovely English grammatical rules. Are they really that important for everyone to know? Why do you think so? Do writers need to know them to even just write their books? I think they do, but you can always tell me what you're thinking. Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. And leave a comment below. Let us know, what is the most annoying grammatical rule in English, in your opinion? What really irks you? If you are interested in becoming an author, then visit www.hanazwriters.co.uk. They are a publishing startup company based in London who are supporting writers and authors to write their stories and get them published. It's a really great platform to help you get started in the world of writing. You can follow Hanaz Writers on Instagram as well at hanaz.writers, and also on Facebook and Twitter. Again, look for Hanaz Writers Limited or Ltd. Also, remember to like and subscribe onto their YouTube channel, which is where I'm doing this podcast. And I will be making some more, so do listen out. Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, bye.